Panic and desperation spread amongst them. The leader of the Palestinian national movement was Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, a religious dignitary. The Mufti took a hawkish line, arguing that compromise with Britain or the Zionists was impossible, and only armed resistance could save the day. His political rivals, the Nashashibi family, looked for forms of accommodation with both the British and the Zionists, but the time for compromise was running out. In April 1936, the Arab Higher Committee called for a general strike. The response was widespread, and the strike lasted a full 6 months, paralyzing much of the commercial life of Palestine. The general strike was followed by a major uprising which lasted from 1936 to 1939. Convoys were ambushed, government officials were murdered, outlying Jewish settlements were attacked. Fighters roamed the hills calling up local villagers as volunteers. Oil pipelines and railways were frequent targets for sabotage. The intention was to make Palestine ungovernable, and so this uprising was directed against British rule.
We carried arms against the British and not against the Jews, because we regarded the British, that Britain was our main enemy. Because the British occupied our land, and we were asking for our freedom.
Terrorism is turning into open revolt in Palestine, and British troops and police are up against a tough proposition. With every Arab a nationalist, any apparently peaceful citizen may be carrying a bomb. And to catch a murderer in an Oriental city is like looking for a rabbit in a well-organized warren. Added to which, the Arabs have a perfect lookout system in their minarets. As the Mueddin call the faithful to prayer, by altering a few syllables undecipherable to Europeans, they can give warning of the approach of police and direct their friends below to safety.
The British authorities responded with a huge clampdown on the Arab population. Massive roundups of suspects took place.
ليش؟ مع ال36 كانوا يجوا طوقوا البلد وينزلوهن ويعتقلوا فيهن 2 3 5 سنة. أنا اعتقلوني سنة وروحت عدارنا عم بستنى، ما جابوش واحد غريب أخذوه.
ليش كان المقاومة هاي؟ عشان إيش؟
المقاومة بدناش نطلع من بلادنا، أرضنا إلنا.
Very frequently, the military would stage an operation around selected villages in areas where intelligence reports had come in that leaders of the local Arab gangs were operating. And although I was a CID detective sergeant at the time, I was detailed on one occasion to accompany the Black Watch to Ein Karim with a list of our known suspects, and because I was an Arabic speaker, to interrogate them. We didn't have much success that day, but when the Black Watch searched the local church, they found a young man dressed up in girls' clothing in the belfry and brought him up for interrogation. I'm afraid some of the jocks got hold of him where to hurt him most, just to see if he was a girl.
A village is being blown up in Palestine. This is one instance of energetic measures being undertaken to stamp out terrorism. From the village of Miyar, shots were fired at British troops. The villagers declined to surrender the culprits or the rifles, so it was a case of reprisals. The lorries of mechanized infantry are parked in the valley during the punitive action. Armored cars patrol the roads, while artillery is brought into operation as a warning to Arabs lurking in the adjacent hills.
يعتقلوا يعني بكل غرامات يدفعون غرامه يفرضوا على القريه غرامه مبلغ اللي ما تقدرش تقوم فيه. ومن الجمله بلدنا اللي هي البلوه صار حدها اللغم وطلع بالجيش وهن فايتين مزعهن طلعوا على القريه فرضوا عليها القتل والناس وفرضوا عليها هي اول مره فرضوا عليها تقريبا مبالغ ما قدروش. قاموا دفعوا لهم جانب لموا مصاري كان ما فيش مصاري ومن الجمله ظل 50 ليره من قاموا اعتقلوا 50 شاب وأنا منهن، وجابونا على كم في الرامي كم بالجيش ويشغلونا أشغال شاقة وقتل وعلى أنا من اللي يعتقلونا على ليرة وقعدونا شهر شهر ونص وإحنا ما إحناش عارفين حالنا وين وهن ما يعرفوناش وين راحوا فينا.
The policy of applying collective punishments to villages suspected of harboring rebels had been used in Ireland. On the call from a bugle, the inhabitants had to leave their houses with their perishable goods, and their homes were then blown up in front of them.
When it was known that a particular community had committed an atrocity of some sort, that there could be a collective fine put on the village, and where it was known that a known gang leader had property, they would blow up his house. That was not confined just to Palestine. I think we did it in Iraq, usually by bombing, and we did it in the northwest frontier of India. And when I went out to Nigeria, there was still an old standing order that you could burn down an African village if there'd been trouble on. So it was not a problem confined just, a tactic confined just to Palestine.
During the uprising, 7,500 Palestinians were detained. 5,000 were killed in action, and 112 were executed. The leadership went into exile. The Palestinian uprising represented a major revolt against British colonial rule.
Effectively, the Palestinian community militarily was defeated, politically it was defeated, in the sense that the leadership itself was put in concentration camps, in exile, expelled from Palestine, so the Palestinian people were politically, if we can use the term, decapitated. After all, there is a certain asymmetry in the achievements and the status of the Jewish community of Palestine as a European community, coming from Germany, from Britain, from France, clearly countries that were technologically much more advanced, that had a much more effective base of social organization than the Palestinians, who were controlled by the Turks before, they're mostly rural, the high rate of illiteracy. So if we look at it was a contest not only between the Palestinian people and the Jewish community, which was much more advanced, but also a contest with the colonial power. That was the most powerful power in the world at that time.
A royal commission led by Lord Peel investigated the causes of the disturbances. It concluded that the Palestinian problem was fundamentally a conflict of right with right. The Peel Commission proposed partition, the creation of separate Arab and Jewish states, with Jerusalem still administered by Britain. The Palestinians were shocked that a government commission now called for the creation of a sovereign Jewish state. In September 1939, Europe was again engulfed in war. Once more, events in Palestine were to be overtaken by what happened elsewhere. For strategic reasons, the British decided to placate the Arabs and to severely restrict Jewish immigration into Palestine. The Jewish community responded with outrage. The British seemed to be reneging on the promises of the Balfour Declaration. The Zionists encouraged a policy of illegal immigration, and the first ships beached on the shores of Palestine on the eve of war.